Hi everyone, this is Jake Mathai, and I'll be your moderator this afternoon for the DoD SBIR STTR BAA workshop. Thank you for taking the time to participate in this workshop, which is a first in the series of workshops delivered in this webinar format. The first three workshops are designed to assist you with both your understanding and preparation of key elements of your 18.2 and 18B SBIR STTR BAA submission. Today's workshop topic focuses on the SBIR STTR BAA processes. Please limit today's questions to the scope of this workshop topic. Today we're going to focus on two areas. One, the SBIR STTR broad agency announcement, pre-release preparation, and two, how to read the SBIR STTR. Next slide. So regarding audio, all participant microphones are muted for the duration of the webinar. Today's workshop is structured as follows: presentation, participant Q&A, panel discussion, post-workshop survey. At the end of this webinar, you will be automatically redirected to a page where you will be asked to provide some feedback regarding today's workshop. It should take you less than 10 minutes to complete the survey. We will also send the survey to the email you used to register. Regarding the Q&A, if you have questions during the presentation, please click on the blue question mark located at the top of the page. If you are unable to pose your question during the workshop, please send an email to sbirtraining.com within 1 day of the workshop. All responses to questions will be addressed and distributed via email within 10 business days following the conclusion of the workshop. Next slide. Today we are joined by DoD SBIR STTR presenters and panelists with vast expertise. I'd like to request that each speaker state their name, component, and their role prior to sharing their feedback. We've got folks from the Air Force, Army, from the support contractors, CBD, DARPA, and all around the SBIR STT community.
Hello, this is Jason Talley with BrightCube. I just wanted to reiterate what Jake said about the workshop today. This is the first of many, and we do have 10 more workshops coming up. The first three workshops are structured around the SBIR STTR 18.2 and 18.B broad agency announcement BAAs that closed on June 21st, 2018. But the information that you do receive will also help you moving forward with any BAA. Today we will discuss critical elements of the BAA, including what you need to do to prepare your response, as well as key considerations in planning for Phase 2 contract award. While we touched lightly on transition and commercialization today, next week's workshop, May 1st, is dedicated to transition and commercialization strategies and best practices. Questions. Companies submitted questions about the BAA process, as well as intellectual property, working with prime contractors, and other areas. Many of your questions will be addressed during the upcoming workshops. Also, we are creating a frequently asked questions FAQ document that will be distributed to participants within 10 days following the workshop. Back to you, Jake.
All right, thank you, Jason. And right now, next slide. We'd like to start with Aaron Sparks, who's with BrightCube. He can introduce himself, and he'll start with the 6 steps for award consideration.
Hi, everyone. This is Aaron Sparks with BrightCube. I'm a senior program analyst here. I've actually spent some time working at the component level of the programs, both with Army, the Office of Secretary of Defense, and the Defense Health Agency. So I'm going to be running you through this workshop today. We're first going to start with the 6 steps for award consideration. Just very broadly, we're going to dig down into the details as we continue through our presentation today. So this is just a 1,000-foot view. The first things that you're going to do when you first look at the DoD SBIR and STTR programs, you're going to determine your eligibility to participate in the program. From there, you're going to need to read the instructions. We'll be covering both the Department of Defense instructions as well as the component-specific instructions. That's where you'll find the actual topics for you to review and determine if that that topic is a good fit for you to write a proposal and submit against. Then we're going to be going through when is it appropriate to ask questions of your technical point of contacts, also known as the TPOCs or the topic authors. There's a couple different avenues for you to do that. That's done during pre-release and the open period. Through certain aspects, you'll be able to directly communicate with them via email and phone. You can also use the CITES website, the SBIR STTR Interactive Technology Information System, Topic Information System. So that's what CITES stands for. From there, we're going to discuss how you can prepare your proposals, and then hopefully in the end submit a proposal to DoD, SBIR, STTR, and the specific components for it to be evaluated and reviewed and potentially be selected for contract award. So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. So as we stated, the first step within DoD, SBIR, STTR when a BAA comes out, if you've never participated, is to determine your eligibility. We're going to cover company eligibility, PI or principal investigator eligibility. There's some nuances with that we'll delve into, as well as some special considerations that you guys should keep in mind with specific types of topics that you might see within the solicitation or the broad agency announcement. Next slide.
Yeah, I see that.
So we're first going to cover company eligibility within the Small Business Innovation Research Program. It's pretty basic. To participate in the SBIR program, your company must be a small business with 500 or fewer employees. Means if you have 2 employees, you're fine. If you have 501, though, you're not eligible. You also must be independently owned and operated and organized for profit. You must have its principal place of business in the U.S., at least 51% owned by U.S. citizens or lawfully admitted permanent resident aliens. The work must be performed in the U.S. Your principal investigator must spend more than 1/2 of their time employed by the proposing firm. That means if your PI is only 40% employed by the firm, they become ineligible to be identified as your PI on your proposal. And also a minimum of 2/3 of the research work must be performed by the submitting firm in phase 1 and at least 1/2 during phase 2. Again, a minimum of 2/3 of the research for phase 1 must be completed by the proposing firm in phase 1 and at least 1/2 in phase 2. So moving on. STTR company eligibility. It's very similar to SBIR. So again, 500 employees or less. The main difference between SBIR and STTR, you must pair with a research institute, U.S. college or university, a federally funded research and development center, or otherwise known as an FFRDC, or another nonprofit research institute. Again, the work must be performed in the U.S., and the differences in the work breakout for STTR are that the small business must perform 40% of the work and the research institute a minimum of 30% of the work in both phase 1 and phase 2. It's important to note that those percentages of work are minimums. You are able to split the work out 50-50 or 60-40 as long as those 40-30% are met in the proposal. So keep those in mind if STTR is of interest to you. As well, with STTR, the small business must manage and control the STTR funding agreement, and also the principal investigator may be employed at the small business or the research institute for STTR. So unlike SBIR, where the PI must be employed more than half time at the small business, for STTR, your PI may be employed at either the small business or the research institute. Next slide. So going back to principal investigator eligibility, as we stated earlier, for SBIR, the PI must spend more than half of their time employed by the proposing firm. For STTR, the PI may be employed at the small business or the research institute. However, just like SBIR, they must be more than half time at either the small business or the research institute. So that must be their primary place of employment. All right, next slide. Some special considerations for you to keep in mind if you're looking at the DoD broad agency announcement are foreign nationals and ITAR restrictions. DoD gets a lot of questions into our help desk about these two caveats when small businesses are submitting proposals, so we're going to cover it briefly here. The first one we're going to touch on is foreign nationals. If you plan on using any foreign nationals in your proposals, you must disclose the information. Must disclose this information regardless of whether the topic is subject to export controls or restrictions. So regardless of whether you are submitting against an ITAR restricted topic, if you're going to use foreign nationals, you're going to need to disclose that within the proposal. You're also going to need to identify any foreign citizens or individuals holding dual citizenship that you expect to be involved with the project. That's either as a direct employee, a subcontractor, or a consultant. And finally, you're going to need to specify their country of origin, the type of visa or work permit under which they're performing, and an explanation of their anticipated level of involvement on this project. The next section, ITAR restrictions. Certain DoD SBIR topics are for technology which is subject to International Traffic in Arms Regulation, ITAR, and or Export Administration Regulation. If you are submitting a proposal against an ITAR restricted topic, those topics are indicated and earmarked within the component specific instructions. So they're going to state whether that topic is or is not ITAR restricted. So you will know upfront when you're reviewing these potential opportunities whether those ITAR restrictions apply to that specific topic. In addition to that, if you submit a proposal against an ITAR restricted topic, your company may be required to submit a technology control plan, otherwise known as a TCP, during the contract negotiation process. So if you choose to submit against an ITAR restricted topic, you should plan to also provide a TCP upon contract negotiation. So that's something you should be aware of if that's an avenue you choose to go down. Finally, if you do submit a proposal against any export control restricted topic, so again, ITAR, any foreign nationals that are listed on that proposal may be subject to security review during the contract negotiation process. We're not saying that you will be disqualified for listing any foreign nationals against ITAR restricted topics. That's just something for you to be cognizant of as you move through this process. There's one other special consideration that does come up that we want to point out. That goes back to that work, the research and development for SBIR, STTR must be completed in the US. Sometimes there are topics that will use mosquito netting, for instance, where a mosquito may be indigenous to a certain area of the world, and there's only 2 labs that we know about that can conduct that research, and one of those labs is located overseas, let's say the Middle East, for instance. You can receive a waiver to do that work, but you must provide a justification for why that work must be performed at a foreign lab. We're not saying that for things like ammunitions testings, and there's plenty of labs here in the US or facilities that can handle that you should put in a proposal that will then look at conducting that work overseas. These are very specific projects that you may be able to receive a waiver for conducting that R&D at a foreign lab. It's mainly limited to more things like insects and stuff like that that are not indigenous to the US. So keep that in mind as well as you're moving through this process. Next slide. So we're going to jump into the process, the overall process for the solicitation / BAA. There's a couple different components. There's the DoD instructions, the component specific instructions, so that covers your 3 services, Army, Navy, Air Force, and any other 4th of state, so Missile Defense Agency, DARPA, SOCOM, that's what we roll up into the components. So they each, if they're participating in the solicitation, will have their own component specific instructions that you will review. That's where the topics are actually going to be found, and that's what you'll review to submit your proposal against. From there, There's a phase 1 template that's actually going to be going out, as well as some other resources for you to use, such as phase 1 and phase 2 sample proposals if you feel like you're stuck or you're just getting started in this process and have never submitted a DoD, SBIR, or STTR proposal before. They're not hard, fast guidelines. It's more so to get you guys going if you've never participated in this program before. And then we're also going to discuss some of the phase 2 considerations moving forward that you should keep in mind when you review these topics at the very start. Things like how to align, or what you should be doing as far as aligning the project from the very start with requirements that are listed in the overall topic. So our next slide is resources. We always get asked, well, where can we find past solicitations? What are the timelines? What do we do post pre-release? What type of outside resources are available? And what options do we have? Or just, you know, sometimes with phase 1 proposals, there is the option piece, the phase 1 options. How do those factor in? So we're going to cover those really quickly. The first item, past solicitations. Past solicitations can be found on the following website. It's going to be www.acq.osd.mil/OSVP/SBIR. So that's going to take you to the acq.mil site. That's another website that SBIR STTR maintains, and that's going to have all of the historical solicitations going back to the inception of the program. So if you're looking to start out and don't have any idea where the topics are coming from, or maybe looking for trends in technology areas, or maybe seeing if there's a past solicitation that offered something that your firm currently works in or has a prototype for, that would be the best place to start to get an idea. As far as timelines, we're going to stick with the 2018.2 and 2018.b solicitation. The first step in that process is pre-release, which is what we are currently in. During pre-release is when the solicitation instructions are going to be posted online. Those are posted both at the ACQ site and the cyberdefensebusiness.org site. That's also known as the small business portal. That's where you're going to be registering and end up submitting your phase 1 proposals to. During pre-release, the solicitation instructions include the topic author information, generally an email and a phone number, so you can directly reach out to those topic authors to ask technical questions. Again, we want to emphasize that you are asking technical questions or for clarification on certain requirements within the topic itself. You shouldn't be pitching topic authors during these conversations. You shouldn't be asking them for their input as far as whether they think your idea is a good idea. Again, this is more for a fact-finding for you all to determine whether the requirements fit something that you can do, or if you have some questions concerning some of those requirements. And during that period, topic authors, we found in the past it's good to email them first to schedule a phone call later versus cold calling them, because these gentlemen, these men and women are very busy. So we want to try and get you guys to try to do an email first, then phone call. That generally works out well. The next step in the solicitation is the open period. During this period, that's roughly 30 days after pre-release. Pre-release ends and we go into open. At that point in time, you will not be able to contact the topic authors directly. While you're in this period, any questions or further questions you have for the topic authors must be through CITUS. That's the SBIR Interactive Topic Information System. That's a Q&A board. So what happens is you're going to submit your topic or your question. That's going to be screened. They're going to determine whether it's technical in nature, and then it's going to be forwarded to the TPOC for action. And then once that answer is received, it's going to be posted online. So it's an anonymous question and answer board, but anything you ask through that system will be posted online for public view by anybody interested in that topic. Also of note, after the open period, CITUS closes to new questions on 6 June. So CITES always typically closes within DoD SBIR roughly 2 weeks before the solicitation close. That way we can get all the topics to the topic or all the questions to the topic authors, and they can respond to you prior to you finalizing and submitting your phase 1 proposals. One other item we want to point out, as soon as the solicitation goes into pre-release, you are able to submit questions via CITES. So CITES is on as soon as pre-release opens up. You're able to take advantage of that question and answer section. Also during this period, it's important for you to stay up to date with any changes in the solicitation because they are living documents during this process. There might be a topic that's removed that you're interested in, so we suggest you guys check in at least twice a week on the solicitation for any modifications, any FAQs that may be added to the topics. A topic author might receive several of the same questions and realize they need to add some additional reference documents to the topic. They're able to do that through CITES, or they're able to append them to the end of their references on the topic itself. So some outside resources that you should be cognizant of, again, if you are also interested in participation, there's local government support, SBIR, STTR support that you can look into. There's also private sector that you can get in contact with if you think that that is the best way forward for you and you've never done this before. Additionally, we're going to get into the options, what to know about phase 1 options. We'll delve into that when we get more to the component nuances, but just very high level. Some components offer phase 1 options while others do not. Those components that offer phase 1 options are called out in the component instructions, and you need to make sure that if you are submitting a phase 1, you anticipate submitting a phase 2. If you win a phase 1, that you include that phase 1 option in the phase 1 proposal, otherwise it won't be received. Next slide.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm going to turn it over now and talk about some of the component nuances between each of the different components. I'm going to start here with Air Force. I think we've got Heather GUDORF on the line. Heather, if you could unmute.
Hello, this is Heather GUDORF from the Air Force. So the Air Force has a couple unique requirements. One that I'd like to point out to people is that prior to award, we also would like a NDA and training certificate uploaded for our topics. That can be done during the proposal period of time. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. It will, if you are selected for award, it will speed up your process. In terms of all of the DoD solicitation kind of instructions that were covered, we do go along with all of that, and so there shouldn't be any differences there. But I would like to point out to everyone out there that we do have a online email available for people to submit specific questions. That can be done through SBIR-STTR-info@us.af.mil, and that also is in our instructions. So, thanks.
Great, thank you very much, Heather. Right now I'll turn it over to someone from the Army. I think either Susan Banks or Jay Eckhart, Monroe Harden, or Wanda Deans should be on the line.
Hi, this is Susan Banks from the Army Cyber Program Management Office. A couple of the component nuances that we have for the Army is that we do have an Army public portal and small business portal. The public portal is located at https://www.armycyber.army.mil. And when you go to that website, you can, if you are a small business and already registered at our Army Silver website, you can click on the small business page and put in your name, company name, and password, and get further information there. But the small business portal does give you general information about when proposals are due and sort of a timeline to assist you. We also have another nuance that we have is that we are not accepting Volume 5 that's been mentioned in the DoD instructions, and that we do have a direct phone number to the Army Cyber Help Desk. If you have any questions, we man that from basically 7:30 in the morning till 5 o'clock Eastern Time. You can call us at 866-570-7247 with any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. And now I'll turn it over to Chemical Biological Defense with Larry Pollock.
Hello, this is Larry Pollock. I'm the program manager for the Chem Bio Defense SBIR and STTR program. The first thing I would like to point out is that Chem Bio Defense is not participating in the FY 18.2 or 18.B announcement. The next opportunity for our solicitation is going to be FY 19.1 and 19.A. I also want to stress from kind of what you're hearing and what you're gathering is read the instructions. The different DoD entities that participate in the program have their nuances. And there are two sets of instructions. There's the overarching DoD Office of Small Business Programs instructions specific for SBIR and STTR, and each component has their own instructions. So for instance, Chem Bio Defense has a 20-page limit on phase 1, but we tell the technical evaluators to stop reading after page 20 should there be an overflow into additional pages in the technical volume. That differs from some of the other components or services that participate. I also want to mention that Chem Bio Defense no longer uses options, so we fully fund the phase 1 at an amount not to exceed $150,000 for a 6-month period of performance. And I also would like to make a comment pertaining to the way we develop our topics, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but Chem Bio Defense is a joint services program. Excuse me, that's what that means is that the technologies that we seek when we put a topic out into an announcement, the end user could be from the Army, could be from the Navy, could be from the Air Force, basically all of the services that need very niche specific technologies related to chemical and biological defense, how to sustain operations in a potentially contaminated environment or how to avoid a contaminated environment. So we get our topics from many different areas within the entire DoD enterprise. As such, the contracts that would be issued from selected proposals may come from an Army organization, but it is being funded through the Chem Bio Defense program and managed by a technical point of contact, whether they be at the Army, the Air Force, or some of the other DoD services or fourth estate individual components. I like to say that Chem Bio Defense is centrally managed and that we're decentrally executed. So we span a large portion of the Department of Defense with those individuals who work for the Department of Defense, who are the actual scientists at the bench. The organization that I work with, the Joint Science and Technology Office for Chemical and Biological Defense, does not have laboratories. We simply manage the portfolio of science and technology, new start developments through a competitive acquisition process. And SBIR and STTR is one mechanism that we use for gathering and identifying those innovative technologies to fill the technology gaps that the warfighter currently has or will have in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry. And really quickly, just want to let everyone know that we will be sending out the URLs and phone numbers that panelists have been mentioning after this. So don't worry about that. Next, we will have Susan Kellis from DARPA. Oh, sorry, Celis. Apologize. We have
That's
Susan
okay.
from DARPA coming.
Thank you. So I also want to reiterate following and reading the instructions because, as Larry mentioned, there's the DoD overarching instructions, and then we have our own individual instructions. And as much as we try to be the same and standardized, there's, for various reasons, we have to have our own instructions to answer things within our agencies. So, in the open period, the pre-release is really a great time to do that before it's open to receive your proposal. That's a great time for you to review all the instructions, ask everybody the questions, get everything lined up, and get yourself prepared to submit your proposal. So I highly recommend using that time wisely and using the full pre-release period for those activities. DARPA is not participating in 18.2 or 18B. However, we will be participating in 18C, the STTR announcement, and then I anticipate participating in the SBIR 19.1. We also no longer are doing the phase 1 options. We are raising the funding level up to 225. In fact, we've already raised it several solicitations ago, but it still remains topic specific. Our program managers determine the period of performance, whether it be 6 months or 12 months, and they determine whether or not they want to do 150K phase 1 or a 225K phase 1. We also encourage our program managers to, if appropriate for the technology, to get maybe a basic level prototype in phase 1 if possible and if it's appropriate. If not, then you won't see that. All of that language will be in the topic itself. So we try to put as much, anything that deviates from our normal topics, we try to write it topic specific as to what each PM is looking for. We also have our help desk, SBIR, at darpa.mil. And again, anything that's not of a technical nature, more of an administrative nature, that's the email that you should use to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. And now we will have Jangela Shumskis from the colleague group.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. For anyone that doesn't know me, I've been supporting the SBIR and STTR programs across various DoD components for close to 20 years, both from the administrative end and then also at the commercialization and transition end. Hopefully, all of you are taking really good notes from the government participants on this panel. I would say that the real take home when it comes to component nuances, specifically in those instructions, is the nuances aren't specific to not just how you submit a proposal and what makes a compliant proposal for a specific component, but those component-specific instructions will also tell you the nuances regarding funding thresholds. Just between Larry and from CBD and Susan from DARPA, you heard that there's about a $75,000 funding difference between their phase 1 thresholds, and those are things that you really get into the nitty-gritty of when you're reading those component-specific instructions. The other nuance that we didn't really talk about, but I did see a question come in via chat, is how CITES is used and how pre-release is handled at the component level. So for the most part, most components, TPOCs will entertain Q&A on an ad hoc basis for technical questions only. However, some components, or even some, say, divisions or organizations within a component itself, especially the larger services like Army, Navy, or Air Force, have made a decision to post all Q&A on CITES, even during the pre-release period. Sometimes that information is disclosed in the component-specific solicitation instructions itself. Sometimes you might just get that via direct feedback from a TPOC, but it's something to be aware of. And I look forward to looking and answering at the questions that are coming in via chat.
Great, thank you very much, Jangela. And now we'll start with questions and answers from the audience. And our first question we'll have, and it's directed towards Aaron. Do you need to previously contact the topic sponsor to have a winning chance?
I would say it's a best practice to contact the topic author during the pre-release period to make sure that you understand the requirements completely. This isn't we're not discussing that you need to be pitching your idea, but to fully understand if you have questions during that process, then yes, you should be contacting the TPOC to clarify any technical questions. You should be fully understanding of what the topic is asking for before you submit. So yes, I would say that's a best practice that anybody interested should be following along with.
All right, thank you very much, Aaron. Next, we've got a question. If we've not met with the component prior to the topic being published, is there still an opportunity for award? And this question is for anyone on the panel who's willing to answer.
So this is Jangela Shumskis with Pally Group. I'll go ahead and take that. To kind of reiterate Aaron's last answer, that type of dialogue isn't a requirement for award, but it is a best business practice to make sure you understand your customer. So in this case, your customer is the component that you're submitting your proposal to. So if you don't ultimately understand the solution that they're looking for and how that solution will be implemented, it stands to reason that you might not actually come up with the best approach to solving the problem that's described in the topic. So again, it's not a requirement for award, but to get, as a business, to put yourself in a position of understanding a potential customer, it is most certainly a best practice to be in touch with the component, or at the very least, read any strategic documents that they have regarding R&D, research and development, or S&T, science and technology, that are generally available on most DoD websites.
Great, thank you. And now we've got a three-part question, and I'll turn this. I'll ask all the panelists for this one. First part: how do I submit an idea for consideration for a future SBIR topic? And we'll start with Heather at Air Force.
So this is Heather with Air Force. The Air Force does not take solicitation of topics directly from small businesses. It is something that we might consider in the future, but at this point in time, that is not something that we consider. Thanks.
Great, and Susan with the Army, could you answer how I would submit an idea for consideration for a future SBIR topic?
Yes, this is Susan from the Army Cyber Program Management Office. At the website, the public website that I had referred to previously, which is https://www.armycyber.army.mil. You will see a tab there on the left-hand side at the bottom that says Submit a Research Topic. When you click on that, it takes you to a form. You complete the form. You send it to the help desk. The email is referenced there. And you check off the organizations that you believe that the Army, which organizations in the Army that might be interested in your topic. Once you submit that to the help desk, I take that form and submit it to the organizations, and they will contact us. If they are interested, they will contact the small business. Thank you.
Great, and following up on that, Susan, how are topics created and by whom?
This is Susan. The Army Cyber topics are created by our topic authors who are subject matter experts appointed by the Army, and they talk with in their organizations and other fellow peers and create topics. That's how the TPOCs work in the Army.
Got it. And another follow-up, who's eligible to submit a BAA topic? How are the topics selected?
I'm sorry, how are the topics submitted?
Selected, sorry.
So I'll kind of clarify. I think what Jake is asking is there an opportunity for industry to submit topic ideas to Army? And if so, what does that process look like?
This is Jay Eckhart. As with all DoD, our topics have to fill a need. So, the topics may start with a soldier needing a new antenna, a new widget, whatever. And it works its way up through the systems of the POs, the PMs, and all those sort of people. That's where most of ours come from, because that's one of the requirements of all the topics are that they have a home someplace, that they have a need to fill. Does that help?
Yep, thank you very much. And now I'm moving on to DARPA. How do I submit an idea for consideration for a future SBIR topic?
So this is Susan Salas at DARPA. We do not accept topic ideas at DARPA, and the main reason for that is our topic authors are our program managers who come in for a certain period of time. So we're always changing. Those people are always coming in and out, and so there's really not an opportunity to collect topics from industry. However, the program managers do hold industry days, and we do post on the pre-release site. We do post slideshows. A lot of times, the program managers might do an additional slideshow that talks more in depth about his or her topic and their expectations.
Okay, great. Our next question, how do we obtain system mission requirements to support our proposal? And we'll start with the Air Force on that. Heather?
This is Heather with Air Force. So the proposals that are going to be put in, of course, towards a specific topic, I would think that the best way to do that is to contact the TPOC and try to get them to talk about the requirements of the topic and understand that. There's also some other ways to go about learning at a broader level about some of the overarching requirements. Google is a good source of information about some stuff that's out there for public release. So that would be one way. But I think the TPOC is probably the best way to go about understanding those requirements. Thanks.
So this is Larry Pollack, Come By the Fence, and I think you're kind of getting a picture that having that opportunity to communicate with the topic author or technical point of contact during the pre-release period is very important to understanding not only what the technology is that they're seeking, but how is it going to be used? And some of the vernacular within the Department of Defense is CONOPS, concept of operations. Who's going to be using it? Where is it going to be used? What are the logistical limitations? And what are we trying to advance beyond current state of the art? All these are very valid questions to be able to ask of the topic author or TPOC.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Larry. Next question, what defines research work in terms of percentage, time, or costs? When partnering with larger companies, they may do a smaller amount of work for a greater cost. Which metric is used for judgment by the DoD?
It's percentage of work, which generally, oh, sorry. This is Jangela Shumskis with Cali Group. Percentage of work is generally based on cost.
All right, thank you very much. All right, now we're going to move on to part 2 of today's discussion on how to read the BAA. And for this, I'll turn it back over to Aaron.
It's Aaron Sparks again. So we're going to be covering how to read the BAA. You'll notice that this slide is identical to slide 12, which is the process. We're going to dig down a little more into the details here on what you should be doing during each section. So we'll start again. We're currently with the 2018.2 and B solicitation. We're in pre-release. The first thing you should be doing after you determine eligibility and say, okay, we are eligible to participate in this program, you should begin reading the DoD instructions. Those DoD instructions, as you've heard recently, it's an overarching document. It's very long. It's going to cover everything that we've touched on recently as far as foreign nationals. It'll touch on ITAR restrictions. It's going to talk at a very high level about the phase 1 and phase 2 processes and some of those nuances, such as the phase 1 award limits, the phase 1 period of performance, and your phase 2 processes. It also touches on things like human and animal use. You can find additional information concerning that aspect of the research within component-specific instructions, because some components do not allow any human or animal use in phase 1. That's an important note if you're looking at any topics that could use that down the road. After you review the DoD instructions, you're going to take a look at the component-specific instructions. As you've heard, one of the biggest things with component-specific instructions are those instructions will take precedent over the DoD instructions in instances of page count. Larry at CBD recently pointed out that if somebody submits a proposal, let's say that's 20 pages long in the technical volume for a phase 1, that they're told to just stop at page 20, while other components might deem you non-compliant if you've inserted an additional table of contents, a blank page, or just additional technical documents in that technical volume. You might be deemed non-compliant. They're not even going to review the proposal. They're going to throw it out. So those are important aspects that you're going to need to look into with the component-specific instructions. Again, you're only going to know those facts if you take a look at and review everybody that's participating in that solicitation. Other things that you'll find, you heard that some of the components are moving away from including phase 1 options in their phase 1 awards. So they've increased their phase 1 award limits to the maximum of 150, or in some instances like DARPA, 225K for a phase 1, while others will have a phase 1 award limit of 100K with a phase 1 option. You're going to find that out in the component specific instructions again. Additional information that you should be aware of, each component, if they do offer it and provide technical assistance services, that information is going to be housed in the component specific instructions. Additionally, how they treat anybody, or let's say you don't want to go with their technical assistance services, does that disqualify you from participating in certain component sponsored events or anything like that? That information is also going to be in the component instructions too. And finally, the most important part about the component specific instructions, that's where the topics are actually housed. So that's where you're going to review the topics and submit proposals against. Moving on, phase 1 template, talked earlier. By the time the open period begins with the 2018.2 and 2018B solicitation, there's going to be a phase 1 template for you to review. Again, this is what we have found across the DoD is a good starting point for you to organize your thoughts as far as the technical volume, anything like that. It's a jumping off point. Additionally, there are phase 1 and phase 2 sample proposals. Those are housed on the acq.mil site, so you can take a look at those. They're actually under the resources for small businesses section of that website. Again, these are guidelines that you can use when you're generating your proposals. Also, there are some component-specific templates. Navy has a component-specific phase 1 template that you can find on the Navy SBIR website. We'll send out a link to that website after this workshop. And finally, some phase 2 considerations. Again, the biggest phase 2 considerations when you're looking at proposing a phase 1 proposal is that how does my technology move past phase 1 into phase 2 and eventually align with that requirement? Do you know who the end user is? You should have an idea of that before you submit the phase 1 proposal, which is your feasibility study. You should have a general idea of how that project is going to navigate through, and the only way you find that out is through understanding the requirements and having that question and answer section with the topic author in some instances, and making sure that you fully understand where this is headed versus just doing the project and the bare minimum that's labeled out in the topics, because the overall goal of this program is obviously to get something in the hands of the warfighter or to support the warfighter in the field. Next slide. So navigation, we're going to be discussing relevant topic identification, keyword searches, and aligning your technical capability with the requirement. So there's a couple different things that you should know as far as relevant topic identification. DoD classifies each topic as technology areas associated with that topic. Those topics can have several technology areas. They can have one. DoD has 17 separate tech areas that topics are aligned with, anything from nuclear and ground sea or biomedical to battle space, information systems, and human systems. You're going to see those within and listed in the topics themselves, so that's generally a good place to start. Identify where your firm falls, what type of technology area you do work in, and then look for topics within that have those tech areas listed. What you'll notice is those are very broad tech areas, and there are keywords associated with each topic. So if you're doing work in, let's say, sensors or the biomedical field, but you're typically dealing with, let's say, military health systems, or looking for a topic that deals with that, medical records. Military health systems and patient decision support software, those terms would be listed in the keyword section of the topics themselves. So not only would you want to identify the tech area that your firm falls in, but you're going to want to do a keyword search of the topics. You're able to do that within the solicitation instructions, the component instructions, or you can also do a search on the small business, the front-facing cyber defense web business.org website to conduct some of those keyword searches. Within those keyword searches, if you choose to use the cyberdefensebusiness.org, it's going to give you not only topics, but you can filter down or also choose, have they awarded any projects with similar keywords attached. So that's a good place to start. Within the topic, within the solicitation itself, you're going to want to look at the component-specific instructions, though, to conduct those keyword searches. And again, aligning your technical capability with the requirement. It's important to make sure that you understand that when you are getting everything together to submit your proposal, something that you will also want to do is make sure that you are reviewing any supporting documents that are listed with those topics, whether they're reference documents, FAQs, or anything like that. So again, make sure you check in on the solicitation to see if there's any updates to the topics and that you fully understand those requirements moving forward. Next slide.
Great, thank you very much, Aaron. And now we're going to move on to 18.2 SBIR special topics, and I'm going to invite Heather GUDORF, the operations manager with Air Force, to walk us through this.
Thanks. So Air Force is doing something different in this 18.2 solicitation. We actually have 6 topics we're calling our special topics. They're going to be the first 6, 1 through 6 of our BAA. And these topics, we're trying something different. We're trying to align these topics a little closer with how the private sector kind of does things. So these topics, make sure to look in the Air Force instructions for a nice little graphic in there that kind of points out some stuff. But these 6 topics are going to have some different requirements. First off, as opposed to the technical application being 20 pages, we would only like 5 pages, a max of 5 pages for these 6 topics. The other topics, the 20 pages would still apply. And we also would like a 15-page or 15-slide pitch deck, kind of explaining to us more along as something that a firm would submit to a venture capital on pitching their idea. Also, the phase 1 will be much shortened. So we'll have 2 months for a technical duration and 1 month for the final reporting. And the awards will only be $50,000 for these 6 topics. And we're going to award more phase 1s than we normally would award on a phase 1 as well. And we anticipate that a phase 2 would be shortened to 15 months as opposed to closer to 2 years for a typical Air Force phase 2. I go to the next slide. So on slide 19, there's 2 topics that will be partnered with a technology accelerator. I believe they're topics 2 and 6. And what this is going to do is essentially that 3 months is the people that would be awarded, the firms that would be awarded for these 2 topics would go through an accelerator process that's been used out in industry. Essentially, it's a boot camp for these firms to kind of go through some processes to really get into business planning, understanding the commercial market, and how these types of topics can be good for the Air Force, but also be used out in commercial industry. This process is something that other organizations or other businesses like Airbnb and Dropbox have gone through, and they've ended up being pretty successful. So we're going to give this a shot. And then I also want to talk to, there is one topic that is also unique in these 6. We're having an open innovation call. So anything that we have not covered in our SBIR topics that a firm thinks would be a good idea for the Air Force to look into, they're able to submit their idea through this open innovation topic. So I highly encourage you to take a look at that and to see if there's something that you think we're missing and submit it through that topic. And the last slide is slide 20 for me. This is a graphic. It's also in the Air Force instructions. It kind of goes through explaining what the difference is between our special topics and the rest of the traditional topics are. So I kind of covered this before, but it really depicts those differences pretty explicitly. I also encourage you to go through the Air Force instructions and read through them carefully. If there is something in the instructions that relates specifically to the special topic or it's excluded from the special topic as a requirement, it will be listed directly in the instructions. And if there's any questions about this, please send us an email at our info inbox, and we'll be happy to get you answers to that and respond as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Heather. And right now I'm going to turn it over to Jay Eckhart, team leader for the Army SBIR program. Jay, go right on ahead.
This is Jay Eckhart. I'm going to reiterate something you've heard many times already today, but read the instructions. Keep in mind something that works for the Army may not work for the Air Force, and something that works for the Air Force may not work for the Navy, and so on. So just keep that in mind. You know, if you're applying to an Army one, read our instructions thoroughly, please. All Army SBIR proposals have 4 volumes. We have the proposal cover sheet, which is automatically generated on the DoD site. You answer a bunch of questions and it generates that. The technical volume. The technical volume is a PDF document that you upload onto the DoD site. And I'll be talking about that again later. That is to include anything you want read by the evaluators in relationship to your proposal. Cost volume, also, that is more or less automatically generated. You answer some questions, fill in some blanks, and it generates that. Company commercialization report, again, that's generated by the DoD site. You put in updating all your commercialization you've had in the SBIR program, and that it'll generate that automatically. We will not be accepting the Volume 5 for various reasons, but so anything that you would put into Volume 5, such as letters of support, letters of endorsement, or anything else like that, have to go into your technical volume. Otherwise, we won't be seeing them, the evaluators. Next slide. And there it is again, the Phase 1 technical volume is a PDF document. Whenever you upload it, after you've uploaded it, go look at it on the DoD site again to make sure it is still only 20 pages. Because a lot of times whenever you take a document from a Word document and convert it over to a PDF, it adds spaces or whatever it does, but sometimes it'll end up being, and sometimes it just inserts a blank page on its own. You'll have to work that before you submit it. But what we do is we have in our portal, we have a system that automatically looks at that PDF part of the proposal. And if it kicks it out, it's over 20 pages, we do not evaluate it. So, anyway, Army SBIR Phase 1 proposals containing technical volume over 20 pages will not be evaluated. They will not be, cannot be submitted for our next solicitation. And again, blank pages. If you decide to put a cost volume in your proposal, in your technical volume, it counts. Everything counts. 20 pages is the max. Next page. All right. It's been said before, but if you have a question of technical nature, be sure you contact either directly or through CITUS, the topic authors. You can call us with general questions, but we're not going to know whether we meant nanometers or nanocentimeters. So don't contact us with technical questions. Don't contact us about references. Contact the topic author, and they will be more than happy to answer your questions. Again, all the topics have the topic author's contact information, so feel free to give them a call or whatever during the open period and through CITUS after that. Like I say, any general questions you have of the Army SBIR program, you can contact us directly through our help desk. Right there is our email address, that real big long thing. We will answer anything you send us within 24 hours. If we don't know the answer, we'll say, hey, we're trying to find it. Then we'll try to find the answer and get it to you. Same with our telephone number. You can call us at any time, but we only man it between 7:30 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern time. If you want to call us some other time, leave a voicemail. We will answer you the next business day. One other point I want to make is we here at the Army SBIR office, we only handle the SBIR program. The STTR program is handled out of a different office, and if you have a question about their program, you'll have to contact one of them. And that's it.
Great, thank you very much, Jay. Right now I'm going to, real quick, I'd like to reiterate that we will respond to questions in the FAQ. We're attempting to leverage the panel's expertise for the remainder of our time. And right now, next slide, we're going to turn it back over to Aaron.
All right, we're going to be covering contact with technical point of contact now. Again, as everybody stated previously, When you're talking to your TPOCs, you're going to limit questions to specific information related to improving your understanding of a particular topic's requirements. What's not allowed, you don't want to ask for advice or guidance on the approach to the solution or submit additional information directly to the TPOC. Again, this is technical in nature. Clarifying requirements, as Jay just pointed out, you would be talking to the TPOC if you want to clarify whether they meant nanometers or nanocentimeters. Those type of questions are what you should be talking to the TPOC about, not whether they think your idea is a good one and that they would rate it appropriately. Those are not appropriate questions for your TPOC. Questions concerning overall page counts, formatting, things of that nature should be directed either to the component-specific help desks if they have them, or you can direct those questions also to the DoD help desk. Similarly, if the DoD help desk does not know the answer, they'll let you know that they're looking into it or put you in contact with the correct person to answer those formatting or overall proposal questions and concerns for you. Next slide. So again, what's not allowed, asking for advice or guidance on approach to a solution, submitting additional information to the TPOC, general solicitation questions, proposal preparation, electronic submission process. If you ever encounter an issue concerning your submission, or you're having issues with the small business portal, that's where you're going to be submitting the DoD small business portal. That's where you submit your phase 1 and phase 2 proposals to. You should be contacting the DoD help desk. Those individuals there will be best able to assist you to make sure that everything is working properly and you're able to get your proposal in. So for website issues for submission, please refer to the DoD help desk. Financing, payment vouchers, or contract negotiation, that's not something that you're going to contact the TPOCs for either. They generally do not have any insight or great knowledge base concerning contract negotiation, and they're also really not able to discuss that with you during this period that occurs after you're selected for award. Intellectual property protection, again, that's something that you're not going to want to contact the TPOC for. Again, if you're noticing a trend, the TPOCs are all for technical questions, requirements, things of that nature. Anything outside of that, go ahead and feel free to contact one of the help desks. They can either get you that information or they can get you in contact with somebody that can provide it to you. Right. Okay, so just summary slide, we've covered everything from soup to nuts as far as the BAA process, how to determine your eligibility, the DoD instructions versus the component instructions, what to do along the way as far as what is and is not appropriate to talk to the TPOCs about, some of the component nuances. I think some of the big takeaways for everybody on the line today is that if you are interested in the DoD program, whether it's SBIR or STTR, you make sure that you become very read into what component you are submitting to and those component specific requirements, from a page count aspect to award limits, whether phase 1 options are offered or whether they're not. And then also making sure that you take advantage of the overall open period and the citus question and answer sections of the solicitation. So next slide.
All right. Thank you very much, Aaron. And now we're going to move on to the question and answer section. These questions will be mostly for anyone on the panel that is willing to answer. We'll start with this one. What are the 3 mistakes to avoid? 3 things to ensure are done right. And this is for anyone on the panel that would like to answer. We can start with anyone who wants to chime in.
Well, the biggest
Hi, this is Susan with DARPA.
Go ahead, Darpa.
I would strongly encourage people not to wait until the last minute to submit your proposal. People wait till the last minute, you make mistakes. If there's any issues, you don't have time to look to make sure your proposal's uploaded properly. We've had people in the last minute forget some volume of their proposal and then accidentally overwrite their proposal with just a piece of their proposal. So for example, this has happened where a firm uploaded a letter of support and they overwrote their proposal because it doesn't append to what you've uploaded. It overwrites it. So that was the worst thing I had to tell somebody is, I'm sorry, but you overwrote your proposal with a one-page document as a letter of support. So please be careful and don't wait till the last minute is my main suggestion.
This is Larry Pollack. I wanted to emphasize that the proposal is clearly written. It seems like a given, but it is very important that what you think may be clear may not be clear to the technical evaluation team. Additionally, there's a portion of the proposal, phase 1 or phase 2, that is the work plan. And it's important to go back and read the topic and reread the topic and make sure that your work plan or statement of work addresses all of the objectives that are laid out in the topic, not just a portion of them, but all of the aspects of the topic.
Great, thank you, folks.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
This is Jangela with Cali Group. I just wanted to springboard off of both Susan's comments from DARPA and also Larry's from CBD. The bottom line is make sure you read those instructions, A, and B, make sure you give yourself enough time, because the two first things that your proposal is going to be judged against straight out of the gates before anyone does any evaluation is one, whether it's conforming. And conforming means you have met the submission requirements of both the DoD instructions and the component submission instructions. If your proposal is not conforming to those instructions, it will not get evaluated. It doesn't matter how awesome your approach is. The second thing is whether or not it's responsive. And responsive means, do you actually provide a solution to the problem posited by the topic? So if the topic is asking for a new material coating for artillery, and you submit a solution regarding aerodynamics, that's not responsive. So make sure you do your due diligence on those points and make sure that you give yourself at least a 24-hour buffer to check and recheck those submissions.
Great, thank you very much. Next question. How important is past performance and experience? We received a debriefing for past proposals indicating a lack of relevant commercial success was negative.
This is Jangela with Cali Group. I will start with that. I think that a lot of people might chime in. Past performance for SBIR and STTR proposals is based on your company commercialization report. Technically, outside of that, there is no real past performance evaluation for both SBIR and STTR. That said, most small businesses are aware of the benchmarks done through SBA, and that basically determines whether or not you're eligible. If you want information on that, let us know. We can send you that information. Separate from that, DoD has their own commercialization achievement index. You have to have had at least 5 phase 2s over the course of, correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, 4 years.
Yes.
And if you don't have at least 5 phase 2s over the course of 4 years, then you don't get a commercialization achievement index. And so, so you'll get something called an NA. If you fall below the 20th percentile for that index, you cannot receive more than half of the available points. I'm saying that quotation marks because not everyone uses points, but half of the available maximum rating against criterion C, which is the ability to commercialize. So that said, I would say just make sure that you are actually responsive to the ability to commercialize. So assuming you don't have a CAI, Commercialization Achievement Index, that will cause a negative penalty for your evaluation, and you're eligible by SBA benchmarks to submit, you just need to answer those commercialization questions regarding that technology and how you're going to either get it to market and, most importantly, into the hands of a warfighter.
This is Larry Pollack, Chem Biodefense. I realize that part of the question also dealt with debriefings, and I want to make one important point. It amazes me at times that of phase 1 or phase 2 proposals, particularly phase 1, the percentage that are not selected and those small businesses do not request a debriefing. Debriefings are done electronically. They provide the strengths and the weaknesses for each of the 3 SBIR and STTR evaluation criteria. And there's a time, and time equates to money, to put together that proposal. So I would think that 100% of the non-selected individuals would want to find out why their proposal was not selected. Additionally, just as a side note, those individuals who are fortunate enough to be selected for an award, they too can select it and request a debriefing. And that will identify certain weaknesses that they should be aware of during the period of performance once a contract is issued, so that they can address and discuss with the technical point of contact, the technical monitor, how to overcome some of those potential weaknesses that were identified in the proposal. I don't think there actually is such a thing as a perfect proposal.
Okay, great. And a quick follow-up question on this one. How important are the letters of support?
I'm like, not it. This is Jangela from Cali Group. I think this is one of those things is it depends. And I say it depends because it's really technology or solution specific. If you're working on a new problem that requires a novel solution for a technology that is really in its infancy, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to get letters of support. But if you're dealing with a technology that's for an existing platform or a legacy system, then I would say that if you're able to get a letter of support, it's going to help you in criterion C, which is your ability to commercialize the technology. I think that begs the question of whether or not letters of support are absolutely necessary. And to that, I would say no. But they're nice to have. That said, you cannot get letters of support from government personnel. It doesn't matter how much of a fan a particular program manager is about your approach. It's technically an ethics violation for them to do it. So letters of support need to come from commercial industry. So if it's for a DoD platform, you're going to be looking at the prime integrator for that.
All right, great, thank you. And now we've got a question. If the DoD instructions and the component instructions conflict, which one do we follow?
This is Aaron Sparks again. I'll chime in on that one. The DoD instructions are going to take, or not, excuse me, the component instructions are going to take precedent over the DoD instructions. That's where you're going to find the specific information for the topic that you are submitting against. So that's where you're going to find the details for page count, award limit, phase 1 options, things of that nature. So if the DoD instructions state, the award limit is 100K, but the component instructions state you can submit a proposal for 150, or in DARPA's case for some of their topics, 225, you're always going to go with the component instructions instead of the DoD instructions. Use the DoD instructions as an overall guideline for how to submit your proposal, the overall eligibility requirements, but the component instructions are what you are going to follow for the topic that you are submitting against. So you'll need to understand Army's requirements if you're going to submit a proposal to Army. And then if you also in that same solicitation choose to submit to CBD, you'll need to follow CBD's specific instructions for those topics as well.
I would just add to that, this is Jangela from Cali Group. When in doubt, check it out. And that applies to anything. So if you have any doubt, any lingering nag in the back of your brain, contact the DoD help desk and contact the component-specific help desk. I would say, based on my experience, most of the help desk will get you an answer within 24 hours.
Great. And now we are coming a little close to our wrap-up time, so I wanted to give all the panelists a chance to do a few closing remarks. But I do want to reiterate again that we will respond to all the questions. We did get a lot of questions in the FAQ after this webinar. So we'll start with Heather with some closing remarks.
Hi. I just want to thank everybody for calling in and listening to us, and hopefully you guys have all got some valuable information. Please read the Air Force instructions, especially on those 6 special topics. They're going to be, I think, unique topics, and we're looking forward to doing something a little bit different, but want to make sure that you definitely understand the requirements and what we're asking for, so that no one is disqualified for some sort of submission issue. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to all of you, and please send any questions on dealing with how to submit some stuff for topics to our info line, and contact our TPOCs if you have any questions on requirements or the topics. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Heather. And next we'll have Army.
This is Jay. I'm going to reiterate, read the instructions. And someone said, I think it was Jandla, said, if you've got a question, ask it. You can ask a dozen questions. It's much easier than getting the word saying you were not selected or you're non-compliant. So ask before you submit and get that straight. That way, it's much easier on you and all around. One other thing, Larry Pollack mentioned about the requesting debriefs. I don't know how everybody else does it, but we send out emails to everyone saying, hey, we made our decisions, go check your results. We've gotten several complaints about people saying they never got an email, but when we look, we sent it to them, and maybe it got kicked back because the email's no good. Or maybe they finally looked in their junk email file and found the letter. So, unfortunately, it's an automated system. We send out batches, so yeah, it will probably often show up as a junk email. So keep an idea of what the schedule is, know when the announcement date is. We almost always, there's very few times we haven't hit it on the exact same day as we're supposed to announce. So know when it's supposed to announce. If you don't hear from us within a day or two of the announcement date, contact us. You've got our email and our phone number. That's all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Jay. Next, we'll have Larry Pollack with CBD.
The message that I want to convey is that the small businesses are going to have to do some homework. It's going to take a bit of effort to find a match for your technology area of interest and an available topic to respond to. So every time a DoD announcement comes out, whether it be SBIR, STTR, you may need to go through every service and every component that is participating and see what topics are being advertised. Because you may find a topic in an unlikely component. In Chem Biodefense, we have certain mission overlaps that you may find something that's biotechnology oriented in DARPA. It could be the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force being the 3 biggest. It could be the defense health programs, and certainly, of course, Chem Biodefense. And then, although this is a webinar series talking about DoD, SBIR, and STTR, we shouldn't forget about the other federal agencies that participate. And there are 2, using biotechnology as an example. You have NIH, which follows a whole different set of rules, so don't assume that what we talked about today applies to NIH. National Science Foundation, EPA, Department of Homeland Security. they all have topics that may apply to your technology interests in the area. Again, I'm just using as an example, biotechnology. So be sure to scour the web. And the place to do that, outside of the DoD SBIR and STTR website, the sbir.defensebusiness.org, is the U.S. Small Business Administration and SBIR.gov.
Great, thank you very much, Larry. Next, we'll have Susan from DARPA.
Hi, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who joined into the webinar today, and thanks to DoD Office of Small Business Programs for setting this up, because I think going forward we really need to do more of this kind of just-in-time training and just-in-time outreach to firms, because there are a lot of opportunities out there, a lot of different information that has to be absorbed and followed. So I think it's good to have these as often as we possibly can. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Susan. And last but not least, we'll have Jangela Shumskis with the Kelly Group.
So I would just like to thank everyone for their participation in this inaugural workshop, from my fellow panelists to all of the participants that took the time out to really get some critical information that might make a difference in how you choose to submit a proposal. That said, one of the questions that I often got when I was working with the individual components is if they missed an opportunity through a specific SBIR, STTR BAA, can they still submit a solution? And the hard answer to that is no. So some of these topics that come out they might be unicorns. They might come out one time, they might not come out again. So make sure as a business you're doing your due diligence to do market research against your technical approach and the opportunities that are available through these BAAs. The SBIR and STTR is a very unique and special process, and everyone on this webinar is a part of that very unique and special process. So pat yourself on the back for that.
Again, I just wanted to reiterate that we will be having all the questions answered that folks have asked in the FAQ, which will be posted within the next 10 days or so. Next, we'll have Jason Talley speak on some of the upcoming workshops.
All right, thanks, Jake. Once again, thank you for the panel, and thank you for all the participants. As you may be aware, there are some upcoming workshops. The next one is on May 1st, which is next week, and it's on technology transition and commercialization best practices. Also on May 24th, we'll have Aaron Sparks back again. I know he's a draw for these. And he'll be talking about the DoD SBIR STTR submission site and also considerations for using sites, like we like to call it. Also on June 5th, we'll be talking about intellectual property and the importance to business and commercialization considerations. And on June 26th, we'll be talking about understanding the evaluation process and what to do with the debrief. So if you have not registered for those, please see the URL down there. Please copy paste that, and also it will be in the slide deck once we send that out. And also, if you have questions that were not answered, please know that we are going to be answering those in the FAQ once we also stated, but also feel free to submit those to SBIRtraining@bytecube.com. Once again, that's SBIRtraining@bytecube.com. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you all. We would appreciate your feedback by completing the survey. A link will be displayed at the end of this session. Again, if you are unable to submit a question, please send an email to SBIRtraining@bytecube.com. Wish you all good luck on your proposal submission efforts and encourage you to join us for additional workshops. Thank you all, and have a great rest of the afternoon.